Mark chapter 5 and verse 24 through 34. Do you have that verse for me back there? Mark chapter 5, verse 24. I want to show you guys a scripture. There is a story in the Bible about a woman with the issue of blood. And this woman was fighting this sickness, this issue for 12 years. Everyone say 12 years. So Jesus went with him, and a great multitude followed him and thronged him. There's a crowd all around him. Next verse, verse 25. Now a certain woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years, that's a long time, and had suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather grew worse. Verse 27, when she heard about Jesus, everyone say Jesus. There's just something about that day. Yeah, come on. She came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. Verse 28. For she said, if only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well. I shall be made whole. Immediately the fountain of blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed from an affliction. This is a powerful story about a woman who was stuck in a problem, but when she plugged into Jesus, she found the solution. You with me? Say yes. I need you to respond tonight. I need you to get excited. So I want to preach tonight on the topic, plug it in, and I want to address some of the complications that you and I have when we're not plugged into Jesus. I believe that many people in this place, while you may have not said this with your lips, there's people from all different walks of life in here tonight. There's people who are sold out to Jesus. There's people who are not sold out to Jesus. There are people who don't believe in Jesus. I love that you all are here. I love that we are all here because I want you to know that every single person is welcome in this place. But I believe that no matter where you're from, no matter what you believe, you've had these statements come to your mind. I'm going to talk about two statements. Everyone say two. Let's look at number one. Could you bring out that first? Jesus is boring. Has anybody ever heard, church is boring, religion is boring? How many of you have heard this said before? How many, I'm not going to stone you, how many have said this? Church is boring, Jesus is boring. Everybody in this place, whether you've said it or not, you've thought it. If you meant that religion is boring, you were right. If you meant that church without Jesus is boring, you are right. But Jesus is not boring. Jesus isn't boring. People say Jesus is boring and the world is fun. That makes me laugh. Jesus is boring and the world is fun. It tickles me. Because when I pray and get in His presence, that is a whole lot better than getting drunk. Because the next morning, I'm not puking in a toilet. When I spend time with believers and like-minded people and encouraging people, I am so much more encouraged than when I go to a party. I don't go to parties, by the way. Listen, I believe that it's because when I leave that place of hanging out with people who are encouraging and love Jesus, I'm not discouraged and let down, but when you leave the party, you're empty. Come on, who am I talking to tonight? Me. People say that Jesus is boring and the world is full. Listen, the world has a bunch of stuff that you can get high on, but we have the Most High. And His name is Jesus. You got to plug it in. So when I say it's not the issue that's the problem, it's the fact that we have not plugged it in. Tell the person next to you, say, plug it in. Plug it in. Plug it in. How many Netflix fans do we have in this place? How many of you love The Office? Oh yeah! Parks and Rec? Yeah! Stranger Things? Oh yeah! Doc McStuffins? But can you imagine? Shh, guys, I gotta preach so fast, so I need you to help me be loud, and I want you to be loud and be quiet. Just anticipate my needs. No, I'm just kidding. Being such a diva tonight. Can you imagine if tonight, instead of us swimming and grilling and we're doing a lip sync battle, which, by the way, let me prepare you. Lip sync battles are teams of 2, and the winners get a $10 gift card each. So listen. Can you imagine if instead of all of that, that's right here, mouth closed. Can you imagine if instead of all of that, instead of swimming and all that, I said, okay, we're going to gather up in my living room, and we're going to watch Netflix. We're just going to watch Netflix. And so what we did is we all gathered, all 80, 90 of us gathered into my living room, which I don't think is possible after burp, I'm sorry. Okay, I got it. All of us gathered into my living room, and we all just kind of sit there, and we're looking at this black screen. And y'all just see my face. I'm just like, Terrell, it was not a racist comment, okay? I'm sitting here watching this black screen, and we're all just, I'm like, guys, quiet down, we're watching the show. And we're all sitting there watching, we're just, like, Pastor John, are you going to turn on the TV? No. And I said to you, oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, I don't plug in my TV. Guess what? Everyone say, guess what? A lot of people say that Christianity is boring. So is watching the TV that's not plugged in. Listen. Listen to me. I got to get through this message. So we've got to understand that if Christianity is boring, it's not because of Jesus. It's because you haven't plugged into all that He is. Plug it in. Jesus is not boring. See, if you could really understand, if you got plugged in, like this woman did, she fought through this crowd, she grabbed a hold of Jesus, she got connected to Him, she got plugged into who Jesus was, she understood who he was, and if you and I today would understand how good He is, we wouldn't be making statements like that. Jesus is boring. I found this video where this guy preaching, he does a spoken word on how good Jesus is, and I just want you and I, can we watch that? And he preaches it so much better than I can. So if you guys could go ahead and prepare, go ahead and throw that up on there. Hey, listen to this, everyone quiet. Oh, that's so good. Hey, listen, you gotta hear it. Oh, that's so good. Dang, dude, that guy can't preach. You gotta listen, guys. You gotta listen. Oh, that's so good. You gotta listen. Wait. Hold on, pause that. Can y'all hear that? Wait. Can you bring, hold on. I need you guys, you guys can't hear that at all? Okay. Alright, I'm sorry. We've been having some technical difficulties back here, but you gotta hear this. I gotta make sure that you guys hear that. Because see, I'd be willing to make a bet that something was not plugged in. Hey! Listen. I'm preaching back here right now. See, many times we think that the problem is with church. The problem is not with the content, not with the preaching. We say, Jesus didn't work for me, or Jesus was boring. No, the content's not wrong. You just couldn't hear it because we weren't plugged in. See, but I would be willing to bet that if you plug that in and you turned up the volume, I would be willing to bet that we would hear something. And so why don't you guys plug that in and turn on the volume? I want to hear this. What is happening? Oh! Turn that up.
When you persevere in strife, the humble Son of God becoming the perfect sacrifice, praise Him for His death. That He willingly stood in our place, that He lovingly endured the grave, that He battled our enemy and on the third day rose in victory. He is everything that was promised. Praise Him as a risen King. Lift your voice and sing, for one day He will return for us, and we will finally be united with our Savior for eternity. So it's not just words that I proclaim, but my words point to the Word, and the Word has a name. Hope has a name. Joy has a name. Peace has a name. Love has a name. And that name is Jesus Christ.
See, we realize who Jesus is, and the content was good, but we weren't plugged in. And so, listen, I could preach that house down. Jesus could be here himself and then be communicating to you. But if you're not plugged in, you're not going to receive anything, and then you're going to walk away from it saying, Jesus is boring. No, you weren't plugged in. See, you and I must get plugged into his presence and plugged into his word and plugged into who he is and plugged into what he is saying, because if we're not plugged in, then we won't hear anything. We'll say, I guess Jesus just doesn't work for me. Let's look at this second thing that many people say. Not only is Jesus boring, but Jesus doesn't work for me. Anybody ever heard anybody say something along these lines? Jesus, I remember being in high school and preaching to so many people. And I feel like if anybody can say this woman with the issue of blood could have said this, right? Like, I've tried, I've gone to physicians, I've gone to pastors, I've gone everywhere, and nothing has healed my problem. Listen, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but I wonder how many people have gotten to the place where you've tried and tried and tried, and you said, let me get rid of this bitterness, let me get rid of this addiction, let me get rid of this loneliness, I'm going to get rid of this, whatever it is, and it hasn't worked, and so you said, I guess Jesus doesn't work for me. I feel like there's some people in this book. Jesus just isn't my thing. How do I get rid of this regret, purity, failure, and faithfulness? How can I lost my headphones the other day. I lost my headphones the other day, and that's a problem. Because I use my headphones a lot. My favorite place to use my headphones is at the gym, because I don't particularly like the music style that Planet Fitness plays. And so, one particular morning I was on my way to the gym, and I realized that I had forgot my headphones. They're gone. They're lost. And so I'm frustrated because that morning I'm going to go and run. And then after I get done running, I'm going to go do curls. And after I do curls, I'm going to go bench press. And so I'm like, this is my game plan. And I love listening to music while I do those things. And so if you've got clip number 1 ready, I like to run and listen to something like this. That's what I like to listen to. Yeah, I love that headbang. But instead, I'm running, and I hear clip number 2. That's what I hear. So can you see that me not having my headphones is a problem? So then I say, okay, I'm going to move on. And I'm going to stop running, and I'm going to go do curls. And so I'll run over to do curls. And normally when I'm doing curls, I listen to something like this.
Can't stop, won't stop. Where Rick's at? I give her that deep out. Like, take that.
And this is what's playing. This is not a lie. So then I move on from the curls, and I go to the bench press. And normally when I bench press, I like to listen to something like this. But I hear something like this. And if I'm being completely honest about something, I started to enjoy the music I was listening to. And if I'm being completely honest, like over the top honest, I started maybe singing along a little bit to the music that I heard, just kind of like you did. And listen, are you listening? I'm working up a sweat up in here, so y'all better get excited about the word. The only reason I could hear this music was because I lost the tool that plugged me into the source that motivated me. Let me say that again because some of you didn't get it. The only reason I could hear this music was because I had lost the tool that plugged me into the source of the sound that motivated me. And what will happen if you and I are not careful, if we lose the tool called the Word of God, if we lose the tool called prayer, if we lose the tool called worship, if we lose the tool called community believers, we will find ourselves listening to the sounds of the discouragement of the enemy. And not only will we listen, but we might start singing along too. So when I hear people say stuff like, I'm so lonely, I'm so bitter, and I'm so depressed, I'm just like, no, man, you just lost your headphones. And people come up to, and I see this, I open up Twitter on my phone and I start scrolling, and I see someone tweet, nobody loves me. And I think, no, you just lost your headphones. And somebody comes up to me and says, Pastor John, I just can't get over this sin addiction. I say, no, you just lost your headphones. See, if we would plug in to the source of the sound that encourages, if we would plug in to the Word of God, we would read words like keep going, and you're enough, and you are everything that I died for, and everything that I created you to be. Listen. What are you listening to? What are you listening to? Touch the person next to you, say, if I got headphones. I don't know what we're going to do when these AirPods come out. I already lost them and I haven't even bought them yet. Listen. I'm wrapping up. And I'm glad that it's hot out here because it's going to make the fool feel better. This woman, hey, look this way. This woman had a decision to make. Because she saw Jesus and she knew if I could touch Jesus, I could be healed. But the problem was, there was a crowd of people she would have had to fight through to get to him. So she had a decision at that point. Do I fight through the crowd, or do I just stay stuck where I am? And I think many times you don't fight through the crowd. And then you make excuses like, oh, Jesus is boring, or Jesus didn't work for me. No, it's not that Jesus didn't work for you. It's that you didn't work to fight through the crowd to get to him. Man, you hear what I'm saying, right? This woman had an option at this point. Do I look at the problem, or do I plug it in? Do I look at the problem, or do I plug it in? And you and I have those same decisions. Do I look at my imperfections, or do I press through the crowd and I plug it in? I get a hold of Jesus. Do I look at my own failures? Do I look at my personal flaws, or do I plug it in? Do I pop the pills, or do I plug it in? Do I keep looking at porn, or do I plug it in? Listen, we've got a decision to make tonight. Do I fight through the crowd, or do I plug it in? I need 30 people up in this place right here. I need 30 people right here. Come on. I need 30 people. And I need somebody. I mean, just create a little crowd there. Don't go all the way to the back. Terrell, I need you to go on the other side of that. That's good right there. That's good right there. So what we have right now, this is the exact scenario that this lady's looking at, right? This woman with the issue of blood is looking at, hey, volunteers, if I could get your help. This is what we're looking at right here. She comes up and she says, okay, there's Jesus. Terrell's Jesus. We got black Jesus over here. Listen. So this woman's got a decision right here at this point. She says, okay, if I can plug into that man, I know that I can get healed. Are you listening? If I can, but I know that I'm gonna have to fight through this crowd if I'm gonna get to Jesus. And so many of us, what we do is we say, oh, yeah, I want Jesus. Oh, no, that's going to be work. It's going to be work. But I wonder, listen, I believe that, I know that this is comical and we're laughing, but I believe that this is many people in this place right now. You say, man, Jesus doesn't work for me, or Jesus is boring, or Jesus just isn't my thing, when in reality, you just walked up to the crowd and you stopped right here. Oh, that's work. That's going to be tough. But you got to realize that Jesus is on the other side of the crowd. Jesus is on the other side of your lost popularity. Jesus is on the other side of you fighting through some things. Jesus is on the other side of these difficult things. And so instead of coming up here and quitting, and coming up here and stopping, coming up here, listen in the back, instead of coming up here and saying, man, I I'm going to press through the crowd. And I know that it's claustrophobic, and I know that it's difficult. What y'all getting out of my way for? You're supposed to make it a struggle for me. Don't punch me. Don't push me. But I'm fighting through this crowd. And even though it's claustrophobic and nasty, and even though y'all stink, I'm going to fight through this crowd. I'm going to fight through this crowd, and I'm going to get a hold of Jesus. I need you to listen at this point. Even the crowd people, you are not exempt. Even though you're in Bible times right now. So what this woman did is she fought through this crowd. She grabbed a hold of Jesus. I hope you don't love this shirt a lot because I'm grabbing a hold of it. But she grabbed a hold of Jesus. The Bible says immediately, she was healed. Immediately she was healed, y'all. Immediately. Like at that very moment. All right, this is time for you guys to part the Red Sea like Moses. Jesus' name. All right. You guys all have a seat. You guys all have a seat. So here's my encouragement tonight. You ready? Listen, I'm closing, but I need you to listen. There's a lot of obstacles in between you and Jesus, especially in a day and age where people aren't too big on Jesus. People don't love Jesus. If you do love Jesus, then it's embarrassing, right? But you wonder why you're so lonely, and you wonder why you're so defeated. It's because you've never pressed through that crowd and got a hold of it. I want you to know, I want to honor what I said that we were going to do. We're going to get out of here at 7:30. But I want to tell you something. I don't just stand up on a stage and pray. I don't just stand up on a stage and preach. I don't just stand up on a stage and worship. I want you guys to know that when none of you are looking, I'm praying for you. And because when none of you are looking, I'm praying for you, and this team is praying for you, and this church is praying for you, because of those things, Jesus shows up here every Wednesday night. And I don't know what you're facing. I don't know what home stuff you're going through. I don't know the pain that lives in your heart because of your history or because of your past or because of the things that have happened in your life, but I promise you, if you would say, I'm not going to be halfway committed, but I'm going to show up here every Wednesday. I'm going to get in my word. I'm going to pray. I'm going to worship. I'm going to connect with people that love Jesus just like I do. I'm going to press through the crowd every single week. If you would do that, you'd see a change in your life. I promise you. I promise you. I've heard so many people, Jesus doesn't work for me. No, you just haven't plugged into him. Jesus doesn't work for me. No, you just haven't fought through the crowd. What's your crowd? Pride, insecurity. What's your crowd? Is it that if I go after Jesus, I'll no longer be popular? What's your crowd? Is it addiction? Is your crowd heartbreak? Is your crowd I've trusted what I thought was Jesus before and it ended up not working for me? I've trusted pastors before and it ended up breaking me. I've trusted people before in the church and they ended up backstab. What's your crowd? Press through it. Press through it. Jesus will heal you. You'll see your life change.